I just got done playing my new favorite video game, Rainworld. Ugh, but I'm so bad at it. I wish there was some multi-dimensional void tentacle lady who could teach me how to be good at this game. Hey, do you struggle with Rainworld? Are you making mistakes like this? Or even this? Well, fear not, my friend. I have come to your aid to teach you the very bare-bone basics of this video game. A game with unpredictable AI, unique save system, MLG combat, and rage-inducing platforming. To help you out, I'll go over each Slugcat and give you some real helping tips. Don't worry, my fellow meatbags, I, Hopsian, am here to teach you how to be moderately acceptable at the video game Rainworld. The Vanilla Bean Slugcat. The Survivor is the medium for all players. He is the standard difficulty of the game, and honestly, how the game is supposed to be first experienced. When you first play the Survivor, you may call the game out to be unfair. Because it is. Before you get too attached to the game, you must first understand this very key component. You will die. This is fine. The first step of mastering Rainworld is accepting your failures as just part of learning. The game throws you into the deep end of the pool and forces you to swim. Now, after your ballistic rage sesh of dying to the rat for the billionth time, realize that the Slugcat comes with these basic components. The gods gave you 2 hands, and you will use them both for your weapons. Spears you can only hold 1 of, you have a single-use storage in your stomach that you can use for small items, and you die in 1 hit. Not all of them will copy these exact traits, but they will have some variation. Now, perhaps your addiction to bloodshed is not as strong as mine, however, I will still recommend at least carrying a rock or some chuckable object with you in case of a threat, which there will be much of. Survivor spear throws are nothing special, but they're enough to get you out of most deadly situations. Unless you're going for specific passages, the violent route for Survivor will be fruitless, however, still doable. Through the Slugcat, you will experience the vanilla-based game as meant to be seen. My tips for you on this journey are these. Understand that dying is part of the game. Karma is just as easily gained as it is lost. There are certain areas of the world map that always spawns a karma flower. If need be, try to memorize them. If you get spoiled on the game's background lore, it's not the end of the world. You'll be fine. The game is still enjoyable if you know what's going on, even if you did find out prematurely. If you get lost, don't worry. Getting lost is part of the game. While it may seem annoying and could potentially break any interest you may have, just remember that anywhere leads somewhere. Keep a rock or throwable object on you at all times. Remember, you die in 1 hit. Do not go after enemies unless you are absolutely certain you can take them out, or if you have the karma to spare. Every threatening creature in the game has a bigger health pool than you. Rainworld is a tough game for new players. It's a difficult game with a high skill ceiling. It very much forces you to adapt to the environment it sets up. So, do you want to start the game but not actually play it? Monk is the Slugcat for you. This single-celled organism is the easy mode of the game, a starting point for baby platformers. Monk has the smallest food pool of all the Slugcats, only needing to fill up 3 out of 5 food pips in order to shelter. Because of this low veggie insectoid diet coupling with the fact that Monk is literally a child, Monk's arms are in fact flimsy and weak and useless. So any weapons or spears he may need to use will be as pitiful as about a 5-year-old throwing a stick at you. It doesn't do much and loses traction pretty fast, but generally creatures are fairly non-hostile towards Monk, and less likely to hunt him down. Lizard bites will never instantly kill Monk, and instead incapacitate him, with the exception of 100% lethality bites. Obviously. Once karma gates are unlocked for Monk, they will stay open for the remainder of the game, which by my logic means that Monk is responsible for 75% of invasive species relocating into new areas. He is wanted in several North American states for this heinous crime. Anyway, just because Monk is generally fairly ignored towards most predators does not make him completely immune to most dangers. Monk is in fact a baby. Child. Because of this, Monk is very vulnerable to things that most adult Slugcats could easily overcome. Wormgrass, drowning, holy escapades, they are all things that you need to avoid at all costs because Monk does not weigh very much. Despite all these things, generally, in my opinion, Monk is good to start off with in the game just to get the hang of the system. But Survivor is how the game is meant to be played. Everything is more balanced in vanilla, no additional gimmicks or downgrades. But if you insist on playing Banana Boy, here are some things to keep in mind. Avoid any all-out aggression. There's no point. You should be using this time to learn how to dodge and avoid danger, adapting to the platforming and your general surroundings. Stay out of unfortunate development. You thought it was hell during Survivor, it's worse in Monk. Monk always leaves karma flowers when he dies, so as long as you get back to your previous point, keeping your karma level stable is pretty easy, not that it'll matter very much. You're much smaller and quieter, learn to be stealthy. Scavs are generally less likely to be instantly aggressive towards you, since you start with a slightly higher reputation system with them. In addition, scavs obtain better gear much slower than they normally would. Still good to stay out of their way though unless you plan on being friends with them, which in your current state is probably a good idea. So, you think you're ready to play Hunter, huh? Do you? Do you really? This hard mode becomes available to you once you've completed your first Survivor campaign. The Hunter is significantly stronger than both Survivor and Monk, with harder spear damage and an extra slot for carrying 2 spears. More flexible and agile, and has a much heartier diet of pure, raw meat. What makes the Hunter such a difficult challenge is an accumulation of limited cycles, harder spawns, and a wider food pool. Because of Hunter's disgusting appearance and crimes against his own humanity, you start off your journey on 3 karma, and God help you if that goes down to 1 before you exit Farm Raise, because if that happens, you may as well just restart. Succeeding your cycle rewards you with karma, as normal. However, once you exit your den of safety, you realize you're fucking dying. So it's best to make your way to Pebbles for your cycle EpiPen, which will keep you alive for an additional 5 cycles and boost your karma, which provides you with an additional time to meet your local Echo neighbors. Each Echo provides a calming story to tell you as you walk away because, well, nobody cares. Thankfully for Hunter, the Echoes do not require you to visit their resting grounds beforehand. They're already there once you save in that location. In exchange for their immediate services, passages are not available. So grinding for passages in Hunter is mostly useful for points only. If you successfully ascend at the end of your Hunter run, you are given a satisfying point chart for how well you did. If you die at the end of your cycles before ascending, it's tumor time! Nothing happens, you're fine. When it comes to any challenge in a video game, Hunter in Rainworld is one of my favorites. You know how I said Survivor is like the game throwing you into the deep end and telling you to swim? Well, this is someone holding your head underwater and telling you to breathe. But don't worry, 8 out of 10 people fail their first Hunter run. It's definitely probably true. So when it comes to playing Hunter, here are some tips and pointers. If you're going to Sky Islands at the start, starve in the shelter by the communication array. That way when you get the Echo, it won't waste a cycle. Your reputation starts at -35 for everyone, but will eventually resurface to 0 if you don't interact with them. So unless you want to induce genocide, you can leave scavengers unbothered for 5 cycles and they'll go back to being neutral with you like they would in Survivor. The moment you enter a room, analyze it as fast you can. You don't have to plan your best route, but it's important to know where the danger is and how fast it can get to you. If you want an easy vulture mask, take a grip to the balconies near the chimney echo while the song's still playing. A lot of Hunter runs fail. Don't feel bad if yours does. Welcome, traveler, to Rainworld Downpour. So you cracked down and got the new DLC. Wise decision. Each of the new creatures have a much wider list of unique abilities. So let's start off with the most in-depth one to contemplate. This fat fuck. The Gourmand is most people's first choice, for his kind and tubby appearance. But there is more to this walking behemoth that meets the eye. What the fuck? Gourby has the biggest food pool of all other canon Slugcats, but makes up for it with its ability to consume basically everything, acting as a complete omnivore. However, Gourmand only gets half the food pips from bodies, unlike how other purely carnivorous characters would. Because of the Master Chef's taste for success, Gourmand is able to combine 2 different edible foods to make a tasty meal. In eating them both will combine their food pips and also granting an additional one. If you follow your heart, or this thingy, Gourby enters the world with a poorly drawn grocery list. The food quest is not required to complete the game. However, if you do, you are rewarded with the gods seeing your pile of chewed up digested waste and go, nice. Then throw children in. Slug pups will now spawn for you, Hunter, and Survivor, but not Monk. He's grounded. And not only can Gorbo create tasty treats for all to eat, he can also make makeshift pipe bombs. For what I've shown earlier is in fact not the spaghetti code for this game. It is in fact the crafting recipes that Gourmand is able to access. Since I'm cut for time, I'll just beam it into your brain instead. There you go. With this new knowledge, you can make stuff like lanterns, bombs, beehives, snails, vulture masks, children, and of course, an anti-gravity grenade, which you will use wisely. If you cannot find the ingredient you're looking for, just stand there and vomit for a bit until you find it. Stand near a popcorn plant and congrats, you've unlocked infinite item spawner. Not only are you a big-brained, big meaty bread boy, you are also extremely rotund. In order to share your goodness with the world, it's important to physically express that passion. By throwing yourself at them. Rolling, falling, sliding. They say the body's a temple. Yours is the Epcot ball. When body slamming enemies, the damage counter can range from 2 to 20. When sliding, or skull bashing as I call it, which is a much cooler name, during this, Gorby is going so fast that he's temporarily immune to throwing spears during this time. Rolling lasts much longer than the average Skug, due to its naturally orbed figure. Gorbo is the highest spear damage, dealing 3 points of damage for every spear throw. In addition, so much power is released that throw boosting with spear jumps can allow a much wider jump radius. Now, with all these in mind, it must be reminded that Gory's greatest asset is also his greatest weakness: obesity. Overworking the Gorb can cause temporary fatigue that halves spear distance and damage. Throwing spears is a good way of making Gourmand experience a near hard attack. Be sure to sit down when this happens, because once you hit one spear, you gotta chill for a second, you know. You just gotta sit down for a bit. So, if you decide to pick up Gorb the Destroyer, here are some pinpoints to remember. Always know that you are big. Your weight is very important to all your movement mechanics. Squid Cadus can't lift you that far, and Jetfish struggle carrying you. The best way to avoid that is starving. You'd get farther, but Squid Cadus still wouldn't be able to carry you very far. Keep a mental list of common recipes you want to remember how to make. Bombs, lanterns, masks, they're all very easy. Your resistance to damage makes all lizard bites only incapacitate you, and there's also a slight chance that a spear shot will not kill you. A very small chance. If you want to get Food Quest done, go to Shoreline first because it has 7 of the required items that are accessible for you. Food Quest does not need to be done in a specific order. Just have fun when you're doing Gourmand. He's the most flexible in terms of creativity. He's difficult to get used to because of the fatigue, but I promise you he's a lot more fun when you're not under constant danger. Artificer is the second character in line for the new Downpour Slugcats, but can still be accessed upon completing Monk or Survivor, similar to how Gourmand works. The Artificer is best described, as I like to call it, Explosive Acrobatic War Veloma, for your recommended purpose in this campaign is to avenge your fallen children who have been wrongfully torn away from you by the treacherous scavenger kind. Your burning hate and fury guides you. Gifted the ability of explosive double jumping, spears staked into walls can be easily dislodged. Spears and rocks can be transformed into explosives at the cost of food, which shouldn't matter when food is what you're aiming at. You are a purely carnivorous creature. Fruits, berries, and smaller meals like batflies are hardly enough to fuel the fire. Therefore, you must rely on meats to sustain yourself, for there will always be increased danger surrounding you. Scavenger hunting parties will constantly be sent your way, so it's best to always expect their presence. For the enemy is never gone, and if they are, you should find them. If pushed into a situation where you have no weapon, you are still left with your teeth. Smaller, more vulnerable creatures are too weak to truly resist your maul and require no effort, but bigger enemies require to be disoriented prematurely. You can establish this by stunning them with rocks or a concussive blast. This can be used to stun enemies and parry incoming projectiles if done in quick enough reaction. However, an excessive use of your detonative abilities will result in temporary stunning. This happens most frequently when double jumping. You can jump a total of 5 times before you begin smoking. After the 10th explosion, your body cannot handle the pressure and it will violently detonate. You should be expected to experience a constant swarm of attacks. But in this case, be thankful, for your soul is so damaged by trauma and hatred, it can never move forward by itself. The only way to move forward through the world that took from you is to take back from it. Scavenger bodies will level up your karma between levels 1 to 5. The level of karma ranges entirely on scavenger personality traits, so knowing how to pick your enemy is important. Elite scavenger bodies are more likely to give you the karma boost you need. Continuing to use the same body consistently is not effective, only a fresh kill will work. Over cycles, the decomposition will slowly drain its value. But know that since you rest at a constant 1 karma, you have nothing to gain, but also nothing to lose. Death is truly pointless. While death means nothing, progress should still be a priority. Taking routes with open airspace is recommended, and becoming submerged in aquatic environments will cause the Artificer to explode. Bubble Root does not help this fact. Danger and hate fills every corner of your vision. There is no escape from it. If you are passionate enough to really truly excel at the Artificer, remember these things. Always be eating and crafting. Having a consistent supply of explosives is very useful for keeping yourself going. Most things die by 1 explosive spear shot, with the exception of a couple mobs. Never trust anything. If you see something coming through a pipe, be ready to shoot. Scavenger pipe colors are white, which is the same as most docile creatures. You are immune to explosive damage. Use this to your advantage. However, singularity bombs and fire eggs still do considerable damage and could kill you. You are very flexible. Explosive jumping has the same maneuver as a flip. You may have more time than the hunter does, but your life is still in considerable danger, and everything is food to you. guys, hello, hi. Rivulet is the other two unlockable Slugcats that you can get after beating Hunter, Gourmand, or Artificer. The moist rodent is here to help. It is the slimy axolotl with by far the cutest sleeping portrait I've ever seen. But be prepared. The Rivulet campaign is one of fast-paced decisions, quick movement, and assistance healthcare. With an increased lung capacity, we are violently shot into the far future. It's our job to help out the big sister in need. The timeline of Rivulet is flooded with the crashing waves of 5 Pebbles' unavoidable fate. Cycles are significantly shorter at the beginning, only giving you 1 to 2 minutes to make it to your destination. Shelter collapses are also very likely, as it's not too uncommon to be waking up to the sound of pummeling showers. So it's important to know where you're going. Knowing the map well will get you far, because you will not have enough time to backtrack if you get lost. But don't worry, during large downpours, title drop, your cycle may be extended, and when this happens, you can move around more freely, at the cost of your shelter breaking for this cycle. Due to Rivy's large, flexible lungs, he is able to swim in for long periods of time. Do not be mistaken, he can hold his breath for 6 times longer than the average Slugcat, but this does not mean they can stay underwater forever. Rivy always do his swimming, but not for too long, or he drowns. But he can still be underwater long enough to get you where you need to go in due time. You may already know this, but Rivy swimmy, but also Rivy spinny. To balance out the very limited cycles, Rivulet's wet skin comes very handy. The wet mouse is almost twice as fast as a standard Slugcat, and his slimy, moist body allows the little slugger to boost himself across 2/3 of the screen when sliding, being able to easily outmaneuver most hostile interactions, which is a necessity in the early game because there is simply no time for lollygagging or violence, as the world is falling apart. Flipping for most Slugcats can be a pain, but it's easier to accidentally flip as Rivulet than it is to do it on purpose. Not only can Rivulet jet themselves across flat terrain, but when hitting the water at a certain angle, you may hyperblast the silly rodent across the fucking sky. This is called ploinking. Apparently. The best way to do this is spam jump while holding down when you're entering the water. Once you skedaddle your way up to 5 Pebbles, you have to slow down and traverse through one of the most mentally agonizing regions this game has to offer. Thankfully, the rain does not affect you in the rot, which is great because Daddy Longlegs never move, ever. But oh well. Once you've pulled the life support on Pebbles, the rain time is significantly increased, and now you can finally take your time again. Rivulet himself is probably the most simple to understand, aside from movement tech and having, wet hands. There isn't a whole lot to his actual character that requires in-depth understanding or decision-making. Aside from the campaign being fairly difficult, anyone can be good at playing the Slugcat. So when choosing Ruffles, be sure to remember, just keep swimming, just keep running. Rivulet outruns most hostile creatures. Just be sure to know where you're going. Avoid all fights that aren't mandatory. They're not your problem and shouldn't have to be. If you want to play aggressively, wait until after you get the refraction cell. Since the rain occurs too quickly in the early game, it's easy to entirely skip most scab tolls. Plus, with your underwater breathing, the rain is less deadly if you're indoors. I would recommend taking food with you in the early game and only eating it when you know you're near a shelter. Shaded Citadel becomes almost completely submerged underwater when it's downpouring. Since the cycle will be extended in that time, you can make it from Shaded to Moon in that time. Just know that the beginning of Shaded may be entirely flooded and you need to traverse in the topmost area. Play smart, not patient. This world is cruel and unfair to those unfortunate like you, my little mutated bag of messages. What secrets does it spill? For it has no mouth, but it must scream. The Spearmaster is an interesting case, a combat-focused individual with 2 stories to tell, and 2 spears to duel. Life is a battle thrusted upon you, because some dumbass robot thought it'd be a great idea, but it's not. Reversing the timeline of Rivulet, the Spearmaster goes way back. Way back. You are a Slugcat, probably? Spearmaster is the only trained Slugcat who is able to openly carry 2 spears in each hand with no problem, and produce a seemingly infinite production of needles. Your pit bar is the most unique, as overindulging food on one cycle could still carry you to the next cycle. Ingesting substance is easy. Simply stab stuff with your butt needles to leech their energy like a little vampiric porcupine. Normally, most creatures will only fill up 1 food pip. with the exception of smaller creatures or the limbs of bigger enemies. There are also special cases of delicious meals like egg bugs or the giant jellyfish and popcorn plants, which are the only ingestible plant for Spearmaster. Since you lack a mouth like the little freak you are, storage is simply not an option. Things like karma flowers and mushrooms require a good shank to the face in order for their effect to take place. The moment a spear becomes dislodged from your veins, it is no longer useful for draining energy. It now becomes a regular stick. Still useful for stabbing, but doesn't provide anything after that. Unlike regular spears, however, your little bony pikes do not conduct electricity, and therefore can latch onto Tesla coils and not blow you up in the process. Having unlimited spears makes for good wall scaling and trading with scavengers, as they hold the same level of value, and you can produce seemingly limitless amounts. Just don't tell them how you're getting these. Due to you being a literal bag of bones and goo, making stealth easier and being able to carry farther by Slugcats by simply doing an MLG backflip. But having lightweight makes you still vulnerable to a lot of attacks. Your grip is very poor, so it's easy for stuns and drops to make you lose grasp on your needles. Starving does not make your body lighter, as it literally could not get any worse than this. Unlike the Hunter, your reputation starts very low with all creatures, but instead of -35, it's -45. Which is worse. The only creature in this game that holds any affection towards you is the they of a bitch that made you. Same creature spawns apply, and you are also given a ticket to Looks to the Moon's chocolate factory. Congrats! Nobody would ever want to traverse through this hellhole anyway, as it's entirely cut off for Artificer and for everybody else's shoreline. Or shoreline but cold. Throughout the entire campaign, you can find these radio signals that beam broadcasts into your brain of the 2 or more calculators talking on their Discord server about how stupid 5 Pebbles is. These signals are not required to obtain at all, but if you want to be a completionist, go for it. The Spearmaster is very combat aligned due to his unfortunate birth into this world. The early game of Spearmaster is incredibly fun. Then it becomes a fetch quest, and if fetch quests are your thing, hey man, I got great news for you. Combat is simple, but the world is hell. But you can do it, I believe in you. When choosing the Slugcat, remember these things. Flipping with a Slugcat, it can functionally take you anywhere as long as you don't touch the ground again. As I said, starving doesn't make you lighter, but you will get slightly heavier after refilling your hunger bar after starving. Remember, Spearmaster gets passages, so fast traveling is an option if you get stuck. So if you need to stockpile on fast travels, you can. I don't care what the community says, if you visit 5 Pebbles before Moon, you do not have to restart your game. Spearmaster's campaign is very lore saturated, so it's very easy to miss things. You can always play it again after you finish and go to new places each time. Abuse the function that you have unlimited spears. You can go anywhere you need to go at the right angle. You can get to Moon through traveling by Precipice and skipping her region entirely. Or you can travel through this route in her can, which skips a good portion of the difficult parkour and leads you right to her. So, you've made it. After all this time, you've tracked through all campaigns, through journey, through hate, through persistence and survival. It's time you were given the final test of pure, raw attrition. The Saint is the final countdown. For many people, you are nimble and frail. It is quite easy to perish in this dead, hollow world. Be prepared, for this campaign is one for the calm-minded. Aggression cannot persist past this point. So let's go ahead and get it all out now. There, now we're okay. Thrusted into the far-off future of 2012, the crying god has finally met his fate, and now the world is cold and barren. Creatures have evolved to adapt to this new environment. Many have perished and some have flourished. Yellow lizards are a consistent threat, and many other lizards have evolved new physical deformities. Scavengers have taken over a considerable amount of each region, setting up lantern pikes almost everywhere indoors. Which clearly means I didn't do my job well enough. But oh well. Every region is different, and you must journey through this painful world to seek out the spiritual footprints of ghosts long since past. You were given the sticky hand tongue to assist you in climbing new peaks to see what else has collapsed. Functionally similar to the grapple worm, however much more controllable. This extra limb will provide accessible escape routes, as combat is near impossible for Saint. I say near impossible. There will be no stuns or escaping the jaws of lizards. You will die. Even non-lethal attacks leave the little grassy green goblin stunned. The standard spear is unusable. The Saint simply refuses to touch a weapon. But you know, stuff like rocks, lily pucks, a fucking grenade, that's fine. Because of this, getting passages like the Outlaw and Dragon Slayer are still technically obtainable. You won't be able to open popcorn plants by using a normal spear either. Instead, you must wait for it to be below freezing to be fed. Your only chance of spearfishing will be the little shitty lily pucks or the literal swords forged from hellfire that you get at the very end of the game. But as I said, this is not a trip of violence, but endurance. A very painful trip. All echoes can be obtained by any karma level and do not require any prior attendance. They know you're coming. They've always known that you're coming. The collapse of 5 Pebbles means that the violent downpours of our past are finally over, and have been replaced with the crippling agony of bitter winters. Over time, the snow will gradually become more powerful. You will have to constantly maintain your body heat. Lanterns are an easy temporary fix. The boiling waters and steams of karma gates will also completely rejuvenate your body temperature. Knowing when Saint is freezing to death is in fact not a hard thing to notice. Visually, you will turn more pale and white. Let's go to the flowchart for this. When you're green, everything's okay. When you're white, you're using blood flow and you should seek warmth soon. When you're blue, you are in danger and need to find warmth as soon as possible. When you're dead, once you have finally slaved away and obtained all the Echo baseball cards, you have finally awoken. The gift of Ascension is something powerful. Something really exploitable and funny. When activating this power, the Saint is given the ability to fly and ascend other creatures. Using this can grant you the pips for hostile passages. And this does not affect Scavenger reputation. They don't know what the fuck it is that you're doing, but they're okay with it, I guess. Ascension works on any creature. Lizards, scavs, iterators, popcorn plants? Alright. First playthrough of Saint will always be the most memorable. To play this fuzzy little Buddha, it's important to know these things. There are 2 echoes near Moon. There's one outside the roof of her wall, and one in Bitterary, which can be accessed through submerged superstructure. Saint gets his own personal route. This should be obvious, but always keep a lantern in your belly. It's essential for getting anywhere, unless you like the challenge. When you finish the game, Saint begins his next campaign with the same item in his stomach that you had stuffed in there previously. So, if you want to smuggle across dimensions, that's how you do it. Unless they patched it, and I don't know about it. When you get to this room right here in Rubicon, go left instead of right. It's much faster and has more shortcuts. Be patient and learn to accept failure. First lesson this game teaches you is how to accept failure and learn from it. The Saint pushes that moral to the highest level, but it's endurance that you must have. This is how you play Enot. Fuck you.